Welcome to another Smash Ultimate moveset. Today's video is another 10 character moveset collection where I make shortened movesets for a bunch of characters from the same universe. This time I'll be pulling from the extremely popular heroes and villains from Marvel. Now this is solely for fun, as these characters have no hope or reason to be in Smash Bros. The idea for this video more or less came from a recent interview with Marvel Games' Vice President and Creative Director Bill Roseman, who basically said anything can happen when it comes to Marvel characters joining the Smash roster. I think everyone understands that there's no way this could or should ever happen, but if Sakurai is not going to make movesets for these characters, then someone has to. As such, I've assembled a list of 6 heroes and 4 villains who would best make the jump to playable Smash fighters. I'll be going through them in order of my least favorite to best suited for Smash. Let's get started. Our first hero newcomer is the rightful king of Wakanda and an immensely popular hero right now, the Black Panther. Black Panther would fill the role of a fast-paced and agile but powerful brawler. Generally, he would feel like a combination of Little Mac's lunging and speed, Captain Falcon's aggressiveness, and Incineroar's, cat. T'Challa would also bring in some interesting tools for his special moves, combining his vicious fighting and Black Panther's suit. His side B and up B would both be longer range claw and kick attacks, with side B pouncing forward with powerful slashes, and up B being a far-reaching claw kick combo similar to Zero Suit Samus. His neutral B and down B would use his suit. Naturally, since Vibranium is super OP in universe, it had to be toned down a bit for the game and function a little bit differently. His neutral B would be very similar to Incineroar or Joker's counter. This would hold him in place while any damage dealt to him is used to charge up the suit with kinetic energy. Once it begins charging up, any bigger attacks use some of the energy to add an extra explosive punch to the moves. However, if the gauge charges fully, he can use his down B and activate a sort of Vibranium super armor. With a slow activation and slow cooldown for balance, this would let Black Panther jump in and do massive damage while being basically unmovable, with only the strongest moves able to make him flinch. And his final smash would have him lock enemies in place on stage with a devastating volley of claws and kicks. Black Panther's fighting style and unique abilities help him fit perfectly into a fighting game, but as with Doomfist and my Overwatch moveset video, he fits in a very standard, uninventive way. He'd have a lot of fun moves, but nothing we haven't seen before, which is why he's so low on this list. For our first villain moveset, we have the iconic Spider-Man nemesis, the Green Goblin. The best part about making movesets for these heroes and villains is that they usually bring in a really unique individual weapon or tool that makes them stand out. For Goblin, that tool is the Goblin Glider. With the Glider, Green Goblin's movements and survivability are amplified greatly, but it also makes him very slidey and floaty. He would use both his enhanced fighting abilities and the glider to pull off short, powerful attacks that could send enemies flying. I really can't think of a character on the roster to compare him to. He would kind of play like a heavy, but his movement and attacks would just be so different, with the glider allowing him access to heavy blades, machine gun fire, and more. Along with the glider, he would use some of his iconic gadgets as specials. Side B and up B would still focus on the glider, as side B would launch a volley of weak homing missiles, and up B would be a big directional charge forward. Neutral B would use his iconic pumpkin bombs for strong explosive projectiles, and down B would be a poison gas bomb similar to Piranha Plant. Green Goblin's final smash would be something along the lines of a Sinister Six cutscene, or just in general a bunch of classic Spidey villains teaming up for a big group attack. Green Goblin would implement a fighting style unlike any other, although it may be tricky to make him work well, especially in terms of hitboxes. And even though he'd be unique and iconic, he's not the best fit for a Marvel Smash rep. Moving back to heroes, we bring in the patriotic leader Captain America. Cap would of course be using another completely new primary weapon to smash, his classic shield. He'd be pretty average stat-wise, but can last a while, mainly focusing on a mix of zoning and big up-close strikes. He'd be like a slower Captain Falcon with some splashes of Link and other human characters. A key part of keeping Cap true to his character is allowing Cap to use his shield similar to Link or Hero, letting him move slowly while the shield blocks oncoming attacks. Otherwise, his moveset would mostly revolve around hand-to-hand combat or short-range attacks with the shield until we get to his specials. Since it's his most defining feature, Neutral B will let you throw your shield in any given direction and have it boomerang back to you once it makes contact. While it's flying, you have to be careful not to leave yourself open. Side B would use a revolver for some mid-speed shots a little slower than Joker. Up B would be a modest shield uppercut, meaning it's best to keep Cap on the ground, and down B would hunker Cap down and allow his shield to act as a counter and reflector. Finally, Cap's final smash would be Avengers Assemble, where all the iconic Marvel heroes gather to finish enemies off in a cutscene. To be honest, I'm gonna reuse that idea for a couple other heroes, but it's absolutely the main choice for Cap. Overall, I think Cap would be an extremely prominent choice to join the Smash roster, but beyond his shield and name recognition, I still think he's a little less wild than other potential picks. Back to another one of Spider-Man's core baddies, we have the symbiotic villain/anti-hero Venom. Because of his inherently shifting nature, Venom would be a fun take on standard brawlers with extended transformations for his attacks. He'd be fairly heavy and strong, very mobile, but wild and pretty punishable. Think a combination of K-Rool and Corrin, sort of. Jabs and tilts would be quick claws and slashes with the writhing symbiote, while bigger smash attacks could have Venom use his arms to spear and axe his enemies. Venom's specials would focus on the most iconic elements such as the use of webs and his appetite. He may or may not share some moves with another character on this list. Neutral B would be a stream of web that can slow down and completely stop enemies if they get caught by too much. Halting enemy movement is actually a big part of most of Venom's specials. Side B would be a longer range command grab and throw. Up B would be a swing and recovery that covers a ton of ground but is pretty slow and predictable. And finally, with down B, Venom would bite his enemies similar to Wario, regaining a decent amount of health the longer they're caught. I didn't think I'd be relating Venom to Wario. Venom's final smash would be him transforming into a giant horrifying monster and eating opponents whole. I think Venom would be a ton of fun in Smash and actually be a really different build of character. His main downside is that he shares some moves with another person on this list. Okay, it's Spider-Man. Obviously Spider-Man is somewhere on this list. Bottom line is, Spidey uses the specials in a way more interesting way, but I do still really like the heavy, fast-moving force that is Venom. Adding another hero to the list, it's the Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Stephen Strange. Strange would fill a similar role as Mewtwo, Zelda, or Palutena, with a heavy emphasis on spacing, requiring strategy for best results. Using his mastery of magic, his attacks would involve him channeling his powers in the form of blades, axes, whips, discs, and other weapons, allowing for a wide array of battle options. Being able to hover with his cloak of levitation would further his ability to plot precise actions against enemies. His specials would continue to use his magic in even more powerful ways. Because I'm more familiar with the MCU version of the character than the comics, my choices will probably lean towards his abilities in the movies. His neutral B would be time manipulation, and you could either attribute this to the Eye of Agamotto or specifically the Time Stone. The Doc would put out a field in front of him that would slow down and then reverse the actions of anyone caught in it, allowing him time to get the best counter action in. Side B would be a large, slow-charging energy blast like Robin's fully charged B. Up B would be teleportation either through the Orb of Agamotto or a Sling Ring. It could cover more ground and be more controllable than other teleport recoveries, but would be easy to counter. And his down B would use the Mirror Dimension to absorb all damage coming at him and explode it back at the enemies close to him. His final smash would involve using the Astral Plane to utilize various realities of Strange's to completely overwhelm the competition. Doctor Strange would certainly be a powerful and interesting take on the Smash magic user. The only thing holding him back here is honestly my lack of knowledge about the character. Moving into our top 5, we have the trickster god Loki. Loki's standard play would be built around mastery of the blades, wielding dual short swords for most of his attacks. This would make him very unique among other fighters, being a hybrid of someone like the Fire Emblem Marth types and ninja characters like Greninja. With these, as well as other blades like throwing knives and the scepter, Loki would dance around enemies racking up damage while avoiding getting hit. His true power would shine in his specials with his use of deception magic. His neutral special would be one of the most unique yet, with a move called Illusions, where Loki stands stationary and summons up to 3 clones of himself. These clones only last a short time and are destroyed immediately on attack, but would be a great confusion tactic. Side B would be similar to Meta Knight or Greninja, with Loki standing still as the real Loki sneaks invisibly somewhere and reveals himself with a backstab. Up B would use the Space Stone as a teleport move, and down B would use his scepter similar to Mewtwo to confuse and stun enemies. I also love the idea of a taunt that changes his appearance to that of an enemy fighter short. His final smash could be a big illusion that tears the competitors apart. Loki would definitely be hard to realize in Smash from a technical standpoint, but he'd bring a whole new combat style with him. Rounding out the villains of this list is the big bad himself, the Mad Titan Thanos. No, he wouldn't just be a clone of his Fortnite version. Keeping primarily focused on hand-to-hand combat, Thanos would be pretty big, pretty slow, but with surprisingly quick and powerful moves. He'd be one of the purest examples of a heavy brawler that there is, alongside someone like Donkey Kong with the feel of Ganondorf. However, obviously the most interesting element of Thanos isn't his fists, it's what he's wearing on one of them. Thanos would possess the fully loaded Infinity Gauntlet, giving him access to the 6 Infinity Stones that each alter an aspect of his playstyle like Shulk. So let's skip right to his specials, with Neutral B letting you choose what stone is lending its power. The Space Stone would greatly increase your speed and jumping, the Power Stone would increase your damage and knockback, the Mind Stone would add a chance for tripping to attacks, the Reality Stone buffs your dodges, the Time Stone makes your buildup of damage happen at a slower rate, and the Soul Stone allows you to leech health with your attacks. His side B is also directly affected by his choice of stone. Normally, it will just send out a generic energy blast like Falco's Blaster, but the stones completely alter this attack while still always causing damage. The Space Stone sends out a traveling portal that randomly teleports enemies like Abra, the Power Stone sends out a huge beam for massive damage, the Mind Stone sends a quick flash that stuns enemies, the Reality Stone sends a wave that reverses enemy controls, the Time Stone sends a disc that slows enemies Bayonetta style, and the Soul Stone fires a small Samus-like beam that grabs and drains health. Thanos' other specials are much simpler, with up B as a simple teleportation and down B as a huge Infinity Stone explosion around Thanos. The explosion would act as a great way to potentially kill multiple people like Hero's Magic Burst, but would have a slow charge up and cooldown and would damage Thanos for using the combined powers of the stones. Finally, Thanos' final smash is obvious, the Snap. The element of randomness would have to be removed, but it'd basically be an instant kill for anyone with a moderate amount of damage. Thanos would absolutely be a totally different heavy with a ton of control over the battlefield. Going into the top 3, while Thanos may be extremely popular and iconic as a villain, the top spots have to go to the most iconic heroes of the Marvel Universe right now. Number 3 is none other than the start of the MCU, Tony Stark. Donning the Iron Man suit, he'd have a slow walk and be moderately heavy, but have a lot of mobility, especially in the air. He'd be a different take on armored zoners like Samus, generally getting more into the action and having sustained aerial strengths with his hover. His basics would be a mix of quick, sharp physical and energy-based attacks, as well as some that would deal more consecutive damage with weapons like flamethrowers, ice, electricity, explosives, you name it, the Iron Man suit can kill you with it. Oh, and obviously his dare would be the iconic ground pound. While not as varied, his specials would still be extremely recognizable. Neutral would be a simple, strong blast from his hand, side would be a volley of homing missiles, up would be a giant rocket boost into the air, and down would be a big cross-stage laser from his arc reactor. His final smash has 2 options. One, the assemble idea that I mentioned with Captain America, and the other a similar cutscene but using the House Party protocol to have an army of Iron Man suits decimate your foes. Iron Man would certainly be a timely and popular choice of newcomer, but the interesting movesets of the top 2 kept him from being the best choice. In second place, we have the God of Thunder and heir to the throne of Asgard, Thor. While there are a couple hammer users in the roster, Thor would bring in a new fighting style with Mjolnir that makes him a bit faster than the other hammers. He'd be a little heavier than average, very strong, and mix a mostly melee combat moveset with some ranged lightning and thrown hammer attacks. Thor got so high on this list because I think there's a ton of fun things you can do all working with his hammer. The attacks may not be the easiest to describe in a super fun way, but like a sword wielder, he'd be able to dominate the field by mixing up the use of his primary weapon. His neutral special and down special both involve powerful strikes of lightning, with neutral throwing out a huge blast forward and down bringing a giant lightning strike onto him similar to Pikachu. Up and side specials both use his hammer in different ways. Up special is a far-reaching recovery with Thor spinning and flying away with the hammer, and side special throwing his hammer and bringing it back to him. His final smash could be assemble, but I think an on-stage animation where Thor is full god power is also good. So we had Iron Man, who was iconic, and Thor, who works really well in the style, but in our number 1 spot we have a character who does all of that and more. It's Peter Parker as the web-slinging, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man himself. He's really just the perfect candidate for the top spot of a Marvel hero in Smash. He's one of the most recognizable heroes ever, and his fighting style and tools are wholly unique from anyone else in the cast. Spidey would be pretty light with a high jump, could crawl on floors and walls, and would pack a pretty big punch with smash attacks while also working with quick damage building combos. All his basics would be hand-to-hand combat with agile punches and kicks, with good speed and ability to chain together tons of hits on and off the ground. His taunts show his great personality by having him do the classic crouch, take pictures with the camera, and throw out a couple quips. And obviously he would have a web tether grab that he could fling enemies around with. His specials are really what make him, well, special, and show off his most memorable and unique moves. Neutral B would be his webs. Tapping the button would send out simple web bullets, but holding the button would send a solid stream that would capture enemies that get hit by enough of it. Side B would be another web attack similar to Joker's grappling hook, but instead it brings Spidey towards the enemy. When in range, he could perform a variety of attacks based on directional input or being in the air. Up B is the web swing. Like Venom, it'd be very readable but a great recovery. And finally, down B would be Spidey Sense, allowing Peter to counter attacks. His final smash could again be Assemble and would be fairly fitting as Marvel's most popular hero, but another great choice would be a cutscene with the many variations of Spider People all coming through the multiverse to take opponents down. Thinking of this moveset for him, I would genuinely love Spider-Man in Smash. He'd be so wildly different while also being one of the few non-video game characters I feel even has a vague argument in favor of them. It'd never happen, but for what it's worth, Spider-Man would be an amazing addition to Smash. And that's it for my 10 Marvel heroes and villains in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So, which one was your favorite? Who would you want to play as the most? Or is there someone I didn't work on that you think would work even better? Leave a comment and let me know. After this video, I'll be stepping away from individual movesets for a little bit so I can work on my new series with PK King 544, Pizza Dude Man Guy, and Nantenjex. I'm super excited for it. So like and subscribe, keep your eyes open for the first installment of that series, and thanks for watching.